Okay, and now minutes. Esther, while
Yes.
while we're doing this, can you call those principals right now and say that we're at a DLT meeting? We need this answer. Oh, 219. Mary's on this call.
All right. I'll reach the rest.
Yeah, just get the principals directly and just ask them.
All right. Feedback.
Christine just called me. She's going to be on in a few minutes.
Okay.
Can they clear?
Okay. So can I get oh, we're not done yet. All right, sorry. A lot of minutes.
Okay.
All right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Joe. Second. Come on, Charlene, you want a second during your last meeting? Let's go. Let's get a Charlene Dawson second.
Uh-oh.
Nobody wants to second?
Is everybody okay?
Mary, Lamar, someone?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary. So Mary second. Okay. So, Louis, can you just put the agenda up really quickly because I want to be able to do a couple of things in order. And then those slides I had you prepare, we'll wait until Christine gets on. Okay. So actually, while Louis is getting up the agenda, there's something that I wanted to put out there to our DLT. So although SLTs and a lot of different groups are 10 months, we as a DLT are 12 months. So historically, except for last year, because we know last year was the pandemic, we did not meet during the summer. I wanted to put this out to the DLT, and I think it's important, and I'm just going to kind of throw in a selling point for us is, as you know, there is summer rising that's happening. We're doing planning for fall. So there will be a lot of information in July and August for us to discuss should you want. Dr. D'Antona and myself, I know that Dr. McDonald and other members of this team are 12-month employees, but some of you are not, and that you are off for the summer. So I do wanted to open up the conversation for discussion to see if the team would be okay for planning to have one DLT meeting in July, one DLT meeting in August, really just for updates and for any questions that the DLT can have. So we can set it for the 2 hours, but it could really just be as long or short as we would like. But I do think it's important that the DLT is aware of what is happening in terms of our summer work, as well as how we're preparing for opening. So I'm going to just open that up for discussion, but I think it should be consensus from all of us that we're agreeing to meet for an hour or two, both in July and August. And we would need everyone to have consensus around that. So I'm opening up the floor.
Daniel, it's fine with me. I just have one request.
Yeah.
If the July meeting could be any time before July 24th, and the August meeting could be after August 15th.
Yeah, so you know what? I was thinking July 12th. I know Mike is on vacation that, oh no, we could do actually July 19th. If that's, we could do July 12th or July 19th. And we can do August 16th, 9th, 16th, or 23rd. For us, it's completely up to you guys. So, but like I said, I do think it's important. I don't think if any of you did find we met last summer as a DLT, I don't think anybody found it to be, too much of, a scheduling issue. So I just want to make sure that we hear from everyone around that. So Gus gave his statement. So you said anytime before the what? Gus, the 26th is out for you, right?
Anytime before July 24th, which is 19th is fine. And from August 16th on is fine as well.
Okay.
The reason is that between the 24th and the 15th, I'll be in Greece, and I can do email and I can do telephone, but Teams is nothing that I've ever attempted.
Okay.
I can do July 12th. July 19th, I can't.
All right. Actually, that works better for the district, Lamar, because July 19th, we have an Apple training for our principals. So,
Okay.
So if everyone's okay with July 12th, anybody against it? Mary?
I'll be here.
Okay, perfect. Francis, if you could email Rashmi and just see if that date works for her, or if not, if it works for you.
That's the July 19th?
No, July 12th.
Oh, July 12th. Okay.
Okay. Bill, is Janine coming on today?
No, but I'll be able to present the high school report.
Okay. So can you, can you make the decision for the superintendent's team? Is the 12th okay?
Yeah, I'll be here on the 12th. I'll check with Janine, but it's fine for me.
All right, Joe?
I'm good for the 12th and whatever date in August.
Okay, Brooke?
I'm good for whatever date.
Okay, okay. Let's see. All right, so then I think that, so Louis, if you could set up that schedule
Yep.
and send an invite for the 12th, and then you said anytime after the 16th? Gus?
After the, in August, after the, yeah, from the 16th on. I get off the plane on the evening of the 15th.
Okay, so I think, I know
So
you showed the vacation. Can you show vacation again, Louis?
I didn't show vacation. You want that?
I just showed those 2 weeks to us. All right, so if we could do, Dr. Mike's on vacation, but we could do the 16th, because after that, I'm taking my son to college, so I don't know if I'll be available on the 23rd, so we could do the 16th if that's okay with everybody.
It's great.
Brooke? Mary? Oh, Mary, you're gonna be on vacation, right?
I'll be on vacation.
Oh, okay, I forgot about that.
If it's good for everybody, I'll just jump on the call. It's no big deal. It's not like I'm going anywhere.
Okay. You know what? Honestly, like I could say for the 16th, we could leave that as a check-in. And that's what's really important to me is that the DLT is aware of what's happening in the district and the city at that time. So, so Mary, I'll be in touch with you too, you know, so if you're just okay, I can send you all the agendas if it's just going to be a check-in and you'll have all the information.
And it'll be recorded.
Yep. Francis, can you actually email Rush me on that date and see if that date is good, the 16th? And Lamar, how are you for that?
The 16th is fine.
Okay. All right.
Did you present the meeting dates to everyone yet or not
No,
yet?
that's what I'm going to do next. So, so these are the proposed meeting dates. Louis and I put together a calendar for next year. As you know, our bylaws say that we meet the second Monday every month. So these are the proposed dates. So Louis will, the 16th was good. So we're going to flip the July 12th one to the following week. But I wanted to just go over these dates with everybody to make sure they were okay. So we moved
I'm sorry,
Monday.
what July 12th is the date we agreed on, right?
Oh, yes, sorry.
All right,
Yes,
all right,
that's good. Okay. So we moved the DLT meeting with everyone in agreement to Monday, September 20th, because the second Monday in September is the first day of school, and we figured that would be a little bit crazy for everyone. We moved our October meeting because it falls on Columbus Indigenous Peoples Day, Italian Heritage Day, which is October 12th. So, I mean, October 11th. So we moved it to Tuesday, October 12th. And then the rest of the days, there was no conflict with the calendar. So these would be the rest of the days for the year. Mary, if you could, I emailed Reggie because sometimes our DLT meetings conflicted with our SLP our CSA consultation meetings.
Okay.
So if you could just ask him if he could kind of go over that calendar in advance. And if there are any conflicts, we used to sometimes hold DLTs a little bit later, or they would hold consultation a little bit later. So if there's, you know, if you can kind of just let him know that this is something that, you know, we've kind of worked through over the past couple of years.
Okay, so the calendar will be on the
I'm gonna put it on the website.
okay.
And I'm also gonna put on everyone's calendar, and all meetings begin at 9 a.m. unless there's anything that conflicts with CSA, and we can then make it start at noon or whatever you guys decide.
Okay, I'll speak to Reggie later.
All right, perfect. Thank you. So are we all in agreement? So we will be meeting this summer, and we have the dates for next year. So if there is anything that we need to make corrections, once I hear from CSA, we can kind of talk through that, but we can wait until July, August, and September to kind of go through that. So are we in consensus with all these meeting times, dates?
Good on my end.
Okay.
Good on my end too.
Good for me. I'm good.
Perfect.
I'm good.
Okay. Louis, I'm sending you something that I want you to put on the screen too. Okay. All right. I don't know if Esther sent this to you. All right, so I see Taylor just came in. Hello, Taylor. I don't know if you can hear us. Okay. So the next piece on the agenda that I did not go over with yet, and I wanted to talk to Gus, but Taylor and Brooke and Esther and Gus, do we do our PAC elections now that we've kind of balanced out? I know it took us a while for us to kind of get this up and running. And once again, thank you, Christine, for your work around that. But do we do PAC elections now?
Well, we should do them in October, right, Gus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a timeline, but logically, you should do it, at the beginning of next academic year, because, people change. Parents have students graduating out. There are SLT changes. So, there's some, reconfiguration that takes place at the beginning of every academic year. So whatever, you can do as early as possible at the beginning of next academic year, that would be, the preferred timetable. Now, remember that schools are, unless things change, are required to hold that first Title I meeting by October 30th. So it has to be before then, because you should have the PAC in place, as part of that whole task.
Right. So Brooke, Taylor, and Esther, with permission of Francis and Rashmi, Francis, would it be okay if they do a presentation at your final President's Council meeting just to get PTAs, and then we'll do it again in September, just to get PTAs thinking about doing PAC elections, because we can't do our DPAC seat until the PAC elections are done.
Yeah, that's fine. What is that for this coming up Monday?
Yes, for a week from Monday. So we just actually, I just would
So
like.
what do we label that? Because we sent out the agenda already. What do we say? PAC?
Can we do it on new business then?
Okay, so just leave it like that and just put it under new business.
Yeah, so this way, just Brooke and Taylor and Esther can explain what the PACs are, how we have to have PACs in place September, no later than October, and then the PAC reps that are elected go up for election to be the DPAC reps for the district, and they sit on DLT. So I'm assuming, Gus, that Brooke and Taylor will keep their seats then until that time?
Yeah. And,
okay.
And, by and large, based on my experience with this kind of thing, there is, you should have a formal process, but most people remain in place unless, there's a big change in the school, because people tend to, carry on from year to year, although it's an individual school issue.
Right. So, I think, and Taylor, Esther, and Brooke, if you guys need Gus, I'm sure Gus can advise you as to kind of what to put together for next Monday. But I think, I think that's an important thing for people to know, that we, our establishment of PACs is that, it was a new process for us, but it is a parent leadership role. And there are a lot of times that I get information from Central where they will say, please make sure that your schools consult with their SLTs and their PACs. So PACs are really important just in terms of consultation bodies in your school. And I would be able to say that next Monday as well. But I do think it's important that we start putting that in place so we don't wind up where we wound up last year, where we were struggling, to kind of put that together, because there is the expectation to put it together. All right. So
hi, before you go on, I apologize. I may have inadvertently joined this meeting, and I'm not the Taylor that you're thinking. So I am going to I am going to end this. I thought this was one of the public meetings for parents. So I am going to.
So our meeting is public. You're more than
Yeah, our
welcome to
meeting
stay.
is public. Our DLT meetings are public, but our DPAC rep is, her name is Taylor.
Oh, okay. So
But
that's
welcome,
not me.
Taylor.
I
You're
do
welcome to
apologize.
stay. Don't apologize. You're welcome to stay. And thank you for being here.
Yes, I'm not the Taylor that you're thinking of, though. So
That's,
sorry about that.
That's very funny. No, because it's funny. I just had Esther. I said, reach out to Taylor, and then you came on. That's okay.
Oh, no. So I will stay on, but I'm going to go back on mute and just listen.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Well, I left her a message. I thought it was her.
Me too. That's so funny. Okay, so
Danielle, when is that, what time is that Monday meeting?
6:30 it starts.
Oh, good. Okay, so it doesn't conflict with anything. I might have a school visit, so that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm thinking actually, depending upon how Francis and Rashmi decide they're going to run the meeting, if you're part of new business, you'll be at the very end. So it would probably be around 7:15 for you if you didn't want to be on the whole meeting.
Whatever.
Okay, all right. But Francis, you'll reach out to Esther or Brooke and Taylor and let them know what you guys decide just in terms of timing so they know.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, so the next piece before, I actually want to, and I know I always do this, I'm going to skip around the agenda. I'm going to do the middle two first, and then I'm going to give the floor to Dr. D'Antona to talk about our draft goal review and feedback and the end of year ELA math assessment and student outcomes, which is actually what we're using to drive our goals. So, Louis, the piece that I just sent to you, can you put it on the screen? It's from Esther. Mary, we're here to, one of the things that we did was, if you guys remembered, we did our own biennial review, and then we went over it together and we gave some feedback to our SLTs, that document that we went over, just things to consider. So as the end of year, one of the things that we did was we did outreach to schools to see if they actually used it with their SLTs and if they found that work to be effective and helpful. So Mary, yours wasn't on here. Did you use that document with your DLT?
We used some parts of it, not all of it.
Okay. So here's one of the things that I wanted to put out for us as a DLT. And one is a celebration and one is a recommendation for goals for next year. So I don't know if you guys know this, but our DLT work that we make public has been celebrated across the city. And I have been invited to work with central offices to be a support for DLTs across the city. Just in terms of how they function and the work that they do. So that was the meeting that I don't know if many of you heard that Gus and I were talking about together. So I was on with Deputy Chancellor Adrian Austin and the Office of the First Deputy Chancellor and the head of Gus's team. And we were really talking about some of the things that we do as a DLT, how we organize our work, and how that allows us to best support schools across the district. So,
Well, congratulations, Superintendent and District 25 DLT team.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. And that is a congratulations to you guys too from the work that we have done. And also a big thank you to Louis for organizing our calendar. And because they were also very impressed at how public we were with
the website.
Yep, and the website. So how public we were with all that documentation and that we record our meetings and we put them up for the public to see. So that being said, and I do say this a lot, District 25 is seen as a very strong district in terms of the work that we do. And I want to thank all of you guys for doing that, right? We always have really great attendance at our meetings, great participation from all our constituencies. So I wanted to thank all of you guys for that. Now, moving forward for next year, one of the things that I had mentioned at that central meeting, that we are always talking about ways that we can improve in terms of DLT. And I talked about the balance between FACE being a central support organization for parents and the work of a DLT, and how it's really important that we don't mesh those two, because if we allow central offices to take away our local governing body, then accountability falls by the wayside, which is what is happening across many of our DLTs in the city, because nobody knows who's in charge. So one of the things that I basically said about the DLT is that we are the governing body that asks for support from across Central. So I used Gus as an example, that we use Gus to facilitate our trainings, but we really do run our trainings for our SLTs. We think it's important. Our SLTs communicate with us. And we do think about that in mind around our goal setting and how our goal setting should translate into SLTs and the discussions that they have. So one of the things that I want to recommend that we consider next year is ways in which we as a DLT can continue to advocate and work with our SLTs more closely to ensure that the work that we're doing is aligned and the discussions that we're having are aligned to the discussions that they're having. And that if there are issues and concerns about DLTs, SLTs, that they come to our DLT first, which is part of law. Because remember, if you look at Central, FACE is not considered in certain elements of law, and DLTs are district-wide. So we have never really had issue like that before. We know that when we had issue with Townsend Harris, that was Townsend Harris came, their SLT came directly to us. And it's always been because we've communicated that into our training. And so I want us to, as a DLT, set a goal around how we can best support and communicate with our SLTs. One of the ways that I recommend that we do that is that we set up, and it doesn't have to be until September, but that we set up certain touch points across the year where each member who is assigned to a school engages with an SLT in some way. So you do it in the beginning of the year where you introduce yourself, you talk about, how the DLT is a support, any kind of information that, we put out there. Like I know we show our district goals across the board, right? We show them at CEC, we show them at President's Council, we show them at DLTs, but, to have you as a representative to say, like, these are our district goals. And that interaction is going to be part of the support. Secondly, I know because of the sake of time, FACE and Gus's team did those trainings for our SLTs. But once again, remember, when we as a DLT did those trainings, we did them not just to give them information, but we also did them so they knew us, right? So I'm going to recommend that if we don't do the training, that we do some other kind of engagement with our SLTs so they know us, even like a meet and greet or whatever that is. So I just wanted to introduce that to you because I thought the work that we did for the D25 biennial review and SLT check-in was very strong work. And I knew that it was very last minute and there were only 2 meetings left, but only about 50% of our schools used it. And we want to make sure that the work that we're doing and how we're communicating with the DLT is important and valuable and relevant to their work too. So this actually was kind of like a checkpoint for me to say, do they see the work of the DLT as something that can and should be part of their SLT? I think many of them did, right? 50% of them did, but it's a good goal for us to set as a DLT around how we're going to get out there more and really basically support our SLTs in the ways they should be supported. So are there any comments and feedback around that?
I have a comment, Danielle. As you may know, or I think everybody should know, the Central DOE is currently revising A655, the regs, and it would be helpful, I think, if you were able to chime in and use some of this excellent experience, so it could be embedded in the revisions of A655, which is kind of dated at this point.
Yep. Well, I did do that. I did mention that. And actually, Adrian was saying that A655 still mentions OFIA, right? Which has been from so long ago. So I did say that. And one of the things that I talked very strongly about was FACE being that touch point support for our DLTs in the area, such as, I mentioned Charlene Dawson, and we're going to talk about Charlene in a little while, but I mentioned Charlene as being a President's Council rep, and she was a very strong President's Council rep with a commitment to the DLT. So she always ensured that there was representation on our DLT in both the K-8 model and then when she went to high school in the high school model. But not every district has a strong leader like Charlene. So I said, so if FACE has that connection where they're working with president's councils and there is a need for a seat, then they can do that outreach, like a DLT can do outreach to FACE, and FACE can support a DLT in getting that seat. I don't think that there is that understanding. But what I did say is, by no means will our DLT ever forfeit any type of authority to FACE, right? Because they value local parent and local community support bodies, and they want that leadership in the district. But that doesn't mean that we don't need central help at some times. So I think they took that into consideration to really say that the the Office of the First Deputy Chancellor and FACE should pinpoint exactly where those supports are. The other piece that I spoke about was the interruption that was out there in some documentations that said if an SLT has a grievance, they should bring it to FACE. I said, that is not correct. I said, and my DLT will not allow that, because FACE will not tell the DLT how to support an SLT without actually looking at the process. And actually in 655, it says that the grievance process should go to the DLT and OFIA. So I was very clear in that, you know, in order for us to maintain the values and beliefs of our DLT, there has to be that fracture of who does the work and when do supports come in, right? So if we're struggling with an issue, then the DLT should go to FACE. It shouldn't be an SLT bypasses the DLT to go to FACE, because an SLT might not be able to come to consensus on something that has to do with a school goal, right? Or that's aligned to a DLT goal, right? And that would really be the work that we do to support our SLTs, to say, let's just say that particular school, their data is reflective on the work that we're doing as a district as a whole. Then as a DLT, we would go in and support that. So I was very clear around that work, but I also feel that we should be, if we want to say that, hey, you know, we want to own this work, then part of owning that work are putting structures in place to make ourselves known to the SLT, the work that we do, the supports that we have. By no means do we manage and monitor, do we have any involvement with SLTs. They are an independent decision-making body the same way that we are. But so we want to just make sure that come September, that's our goal, you know, and if everyone agrees with that, I think it's a strong focus for us as a DLT to work through as well. Any comments?
You know, I've always interpreted the regs about SLT issues in the following way. I always say that each school and each district is like a family. So the family first should try to resolve the differences or issues at the very local level. And then the next place to go, if they can't resolve it at the local level, is the district and the DLT, which is, you know, the larger part of your family, and only involve central as a very last resort when the other two levels don't work. And it's in my, 20 plus years of experience with this, it's only on very rare occasions. I can think of only maybe 6 or 7 in all those years with all the districts that I've dealt with, that we've had to go outside of the, respective families to deal with those.
Right. Agreed. But that is, I think, over the past couple of years has been a miscommunication to some people, because they parallel DLT and FACE as one body, and it should not be. There should be clear, and that is what I said at my meeting, there should be clear representation that if a SLT has an issue and cannot come to consensus, because their work should be aligned to the work of the district in some way, then it should be the district DLT. And I'm not even just saying the district superintendent's office, I'm saying the district DLT. That supports the SLTs in working through that. And then you said there should be that next layer. Right now, that has not been made clear. So that is also something that I had asked for. But as I was engaging in that conversation, I said, we do a lot of really amazing work as a DLT, but this is something that I think we could do a little better in terms of getting the SLTs to know not just the work that we do, but how we are here to support, and that there's a member of the DLT that is your touch point person should you have any issues, right? And so to create these structures where 3 times a year that person attends an SLT meeting, the first year to just introduce themselves, the mid-year to kind of say like, how's everything going? And then, you know, end year, is there anything else I could support you with? And I want to celebrate, you know, how the end of your year has gone. So just something to kind of put out there, but I did think it was important that we did that. And Joe, I see that your hand is raised.
Yes, so the central or FACE know that if they are presented with an issue to send it back to the DLT?
No,
I mean,
no.
So they're not even going to tell them, go back to your DLT. They'll just take it on themselves, correct?
Correct. As of right now. So we want to sort of, and look, we don't have that happen a lot. We've only had it happen 1 or 2 times. But the question is, and one of the things that we want to support, and this is what I said, is we want to support governing bodies in our schools that make decisions, right? If people are constantly going on the outside and not bringing up topics, because most of the time the questions that are being presented to FACE are questions that really should go to Gus and his team. But, and then therefore it takes a long time for FACE to answer the questions, because what they do is they go to FACE and then FACE goes to Gus's team, and then Gus's team sends it back to FACE, and then FACE sends it back to the SLT person. And by that time you've had 2 meetings, you know? So that's another thing. It's about the transfer of information, that if a question is asked to the DLT member, somebody can go to Gus. And we know that for the most part, Gus gets his answers, if he doesn't know them, within days, right? So it's also about, we want to get our SLTs information as quickly as possible. And so that is something that we're asking them to correct centrally. But I also think it's up to us to start telling SLTs, if you have a question, you can go to DLT.
Well,
Right?
can't we tell FACE that, look, if you have an issue, you need to send it back to DLT? Do we have any control over that?
Well, we are, and I think that's part of what they're talking about in A655, and what I had spoken about at the meeting is that Gus's team, you know, and sometimes when Gus says things, we get like, oh, Gus, you know, but Gus's team keeps us in compliance with state mandates, right? And at the same time, Gus, because he's known the district for so long, makes recommendations to us around our goals and touch points and benchmarks and all of those things. So, I also think from my meeting that there was a disconnect between Gus's team, OFDC, FACE, and the district and the DLTs, and that's part of the work that we're trying to kind of get in place. So I did say that, and we'll continue to say that, Joe. But I think we as a DLT need to make a commitment to not only doing, like, let's do an introduction, here we are as a DLT, but also really utilizing those support people that we put in place every year, and doing some outreach to SLTs 3 times a year. But we would all have to make that commitment, right? So if we say we're going to do outreach 3 times a year, we go to, and even if it's not 3, if it's 2, if we go in September and then we go in February and not the end of the year, and of course people could go more, but if we come to consensus, it's we're going these 2 times. And I think that's the important thing to surface. All right. Any questions, concerns with any of that?
I have a question. This is Francis.
Hey,
So is this just for our district we're doing this, or we're trying to implement this for all the other districts so that this protocol is constant throughout our city?
So our protocol of outreach to schools and representatives from DLT is not a mandate. That's something that we've done for years. So we can't make that a protocol across the city. But the whole concept of SLTs understanding that if they can't come to consensus, they should go to DLTs first is something that needs to be redeveloped across the city, because it is what should be in place, because there are people in place to support SLTs, like somebody like Gus, who really works, although he's, assigned to a borough, his information really comes from central offices, right? And a lot of questions that people have are about statewide compliance. So there are resources at the local level that SLTs can come and ask for. If a school needs data about a certain, aligned goal, you then have somebody like Mike or Lewis from our team that can give you that data. So we have resources that we want SLTs to be aware of, that can help support an SLT coming to consensus, right? So because those structures are in place in our district, we can give essentially more support to bring SLTs to a space where they can re-engage in a conversation, because at no point would us as a DLT want to make decisions for an SLT. We want to support them in their decision making, and we have the supports at our level to do that, right? So that's really kind of where I want us to set a goal for a DLT next year, to make sure that our schools understand the work, right? So as long as we're on the same page with that, Mike and I can continue to plan for that come September. We'll put all the systems and structures in place so we could start that right away. We'll get all the schools' SLT dates, we don't know how we're going to meet, but however we're going to meet, and leave it like that. So Francis, I know your hand was raised. Did you have another question?
Yes. So there's an outstanding question, since we're on SLT topic, that was presented for the terms of the SLT. Are they the same for parents and staff?
So A655 does not designate that. So that is where it goes by a school's bylaws. So we don't, there's nothing that says you can't have different different terms. So for example, a lot of times that comes up in middle schools, because you'll have somebody who will run for SLT. They'll be in 8th grade and they never finish their term and there's not continuity. So we leave that up to schools to decide. So there's nothing that says you cannot do that. Should there be consistent, or is it recommended that there is consistent terms? I would say yes, right, Gus? Would you agree to that? That there should be consistent terms, but there's nothing that says you cannot do that.
What I'm saying is, if a parent has a 3-year term, or let me reverse it, if a parent has a 1-year term and a teacher has a 2-year term, wouldn't that be an uneven balance? It's like an unbalance.
It's still parent representation. It's not that you're taking away parent representation.
No, but right. But I would assume that an SLT, being that they has to have an equal balance of parents and staff, that it would be an equal balance of terms. I'm just saying, for a school to have different terms, I don't know if that would be considered fair. I don't know. I have to check my bylaws. I don't even know from my school. I would think it'd be the same, but that question has arisen and we don't have an answer for it.
So that is really the answer. And remember, we learned through our work that if it's not an A655, you can't have something in your bylaws that's against chancellor's regs. But
I don't think it's listed in there.
So therefore, this is where we say that this is really an SLT conversation, not a central or DLT conversation, to say, bring it to your SLT and see where you guys land with that, and if you can come to consensus on that topic, right? So because what we're saying is, as long as you have a parent every year, you have equal balance, equal representation. So, but if you want to make changes to your bylaws, that's really done at the local SLT level. Gus, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. It's a local issue. It should be in the bylaws. And, the way I think of it is that there has to be an equal balance of staff and parents, but it doesn't have to be the same parents or the same staff year to year. So as long as it's equally balanced, because people leave. I mean, people sometimes leave in the middle of the year. They move outside of the district, and the children go to a different school. So there has to be that flexibility and dynamic. But I want to mention three things that to be, maybe you could follow them, Danielle, in terms of the revisions taking place with A6Y5. And all three have come up in our trainings, and just based on my long experience with your district and the other districts. The one is the whole new PAC mandates and configurations. So we have to watch the language. Right now, the signature of the PAC president or representative on the SLT signature page is not mandated. They put it in, and it's supposed to be there, but it's not in the regulations because when they created the regulations, that a whole PAC mandate was not a part of the process at the time. And, Queens played a key role in the whole creation and pushing for that Title I representation. And I was thinking about this, so I just have to say it. One of the districts that pushed for it was District 27. And if I remember correctly, Mike was acting superintendent of 27 for a period of time. And he did such an excellent job that, even though I wasn't there, I followed because I had 10 years experience with 27. And I have to say that everything went very well during his temporary leadership of that district. So the whole PAC issue needs to be finessed, and they need to put it into the regulations and going forward to make sure that it makes sense and that it meets the communication, because it's really a communication and input need on the part of the parents. The second issue that is an issue of very long standing, and you've done an outstanding job, and I think that Queens North as a whole has done an outstanding job. But again, it's difficult. When they did away with the high school division, and again, because of my long-standing experience, I remember the high school division, and then the high schools were collapsed into the geographic districts as far as DLT work is concerned. So what we've done is we've established structures really on our own to make sure that the high schools have a voice and representation, and high school parents have a voice and representation in terms of DLTs, and that their SLT communications are part of the whole system and work. So if they're not going to go back to any kind of borough high school entity, then that needs to be anticipated and finessed in some way in terms of the revisions of A655. And then the last issue that's come up in a lot of the trainings that I've been over the years is DC 37. DC 37 is a voluntary member of SLTs and DLTs at this point, but there's always been, and I told Sharon Rencher this. There's such a key element both at the school level and district wide, and their constituencies are so important that the regulations should really just mandate them, in my opinion. And that's what I've expressed in Central. And hopefully that will be heard and incorporated in whatever changes they make.
Right. Yep. So I want to go back to Francis's piece for right now and actually just give you an example of some of the work that we would do and the conversations that we would have as a DLT if this was presented to us. So if there is a school that has different terms, that means that they've changed the recommended bylaws, right? So as a DLT, through our discussions, we may make recommendations such as they're a team, and if you have your bylaws as a team, you might want to have the same terms, but for them to change their bylaws, there was a reason to do that. They actually went into the model and change that, because that's not in the original model. But once again, here's where we want to talk about the fact that in order for our SLTs to be strong and make strong decisions, we need to allow them to have those conversations, right? So if I'm a parent, or if I'm a teacher, or if I'm a principal, and I think that there is an inequity within the bylaws, then we encourage them to surface that, to allow them to discuss it. So if somebody came and asked us that question, our first question would be, well, has this been discussed at the SLT, right? Because remember, our work is valuing what happens at that level. Charlene, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi, good morning. Sorry I wasn't here earlier. I was on a staff meeting. The teachers' terms and the parents' terms do not have anything to do with each other. They do not affect how the SLT works. It doesn't matter if they're the same exact terms. They're not partners. They're not running like on the same ticket. The rule is there must be a balance. So if you have 5 parents or 5 teachers, it doesn't matter if that teacher retires in January. The teachers have another election to replace it. The same with the SLT. If a parent decides to move in the middle of the school year and that parent is on SLT, the PTA has to have an election. So it does not have to be in their bylaws that they have to have concurrent terms. It's ridiculous. It's not necessary. Everything changes. You just mess up the flow of an SLT if you try to do that. And it's confusing. It's easier to let everyone have their own terms. The PTA in their bylaws decide whatever they got to decide, and the SLT in their bylaws decide what they need to do. Parents vote for parents, teachers vote for teachers. It does not have to be concurrent. And it should not affect the flow of an SLT. That's just all. Okay.
Thank you, Charlene. Okay. Okay, so, so we just actually showed an example of the work that we would do if an issue was presented to us. So, and then always we would send it back to SLTs, because as a value, what we want to do is to open up conversations at the local level, right? So, okay. Moving forward, because I know Charlene has come on and off, because I know that she's got a lot to do with work. I do want Louis put up that piece for Charlene.
Charlene's panicking right now. She's like, what are you talking about?
There we go, Charlene. Look. So today is today your last meeting? Yes, because your son graduates. So today is Charlene's last meeting, and District 25, and I'm going to speak on behalf of the entire district and the DLT. We want to say thank you for all that you've done for all New York City students across District 25, inclusive of our high schools. I met Charlene when I first became superintendent 11 years ago. She has always been an active member of our community. She helped create many of the structures of our President's Council that we have today, because we know that it was a little messy when we first came together. It was really important that Charlene educated parents just in terms of what it means to be a parent leader. She has no problem bringing things to the surface on behalf of children, but she also really helped structure a lot of the things that make District 25 be successful. I have learned a tremendous amount from you, Charlene. I am going to miss you terribly. Just know you are part of the family, and as we say, no one leaves the family. We are here for you. Come back to us anytime. But we wanted to give you a big thank you for everything that you've done across all of these years that we've been together. So big round of applause for you, Charlene.
I'm gonna get y'all for making me cry.
Now you're at work and you're crying.
I know.
They're gonna come in and say, "What's happening? Why are you crying?"
Okay. Well,
Charlene, I want to say that you have been a great mentor to me. I have learned so much from you. I'm sorry. I don't want you to cry. And I appreciate you always being there for me as I was starting out as a parent leader. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just glad I could help. And I can't believe you're making me cry more. Oh,
Darlene, we're giving you one last job. You need to make sure we have high school representation next year.
well, I'll let you know because our elections are tonight.
Okay, perfect.
So-
Make sure we have high school representation. It's important.
I
And make
know.
sure you interview them.
I wish I could. If I could handpick, I would. Okay, I would, but I can't. Unfortunately, I'm really gonna miss you guys. I mean, like you said, 11 years. I think I've been, oh yeah, 11 years with DLT. No, not DLT, but with President's Count. You know what? I lost count.
Yeah. From
It's
the
been a-
very start, Charlene, you kind of took me under your wing and you were like, let me teach you a couple things. So I value and appreciate you. You know, I respect you as a community leader, as a parent, and as a mom, right? Like there were a lot of times where I was like, I'm killing mine. Are you killing yours? You know, like.
Yeah, he still may die.
And then sometimes we're like, I'm killing it, right? So thank you, Charlene. We, as you know, you will be tremendously missed. And thank you for, you know, just bringing up this concept of a parent leader. Like Christine said, you know, you've mentored so many of our President's Council presidents and have just really helped guided them across the years. So we owe this tribute to you and thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to thank you guys because honestly, you're the best DLT.
We are.
I'm not impartial. I'm sorry. I'm not. But we're the best DLT because when I sit there and I'm going to other meetings and I'm hearing about other schools and their DLTs, I'm like, oh, we don't have that problem. We don't have that problem. We don't have that problem. There are schools that don't even really address the high schools, really. There's not a rep there. So, you know, I know this year, Shirley and I tried to make sure that we were at every meeting because before Nancy did everything. But once Nancy left, everyone had their own conflicting schedules. You know, we're working parents. Because of the pandemic, we were able to show up more places than we were before. So my hope is that, you know, DOE will let us still have some type of virtual portion of our meetings. Like if they're in person, give us a virtual option because now you have more parent involvement because it's virtual. Here I go again advocating. But anyway, I can't help it. But Danielle, thank you. From the moment you came on, you were always, your ears were open and you were ready to listen. You didn't put anything off. You took everything into account. You thought about it. You had my back when I was dealing with that psycho principal at 164 who finally retired. Oh, that was the best day of my life. But y'all don't understand the problems I had with her. But this has been an amazing DLT. I've had a great time working with all of you. Of course, you down there in the corner, you're on my left over here, Miss Thing. Joe, it's been great. I love your insight. I love your input. I love your passion. Keep doing what you do with COC. Louis, you know you're the best. Mike, I see you, Mike. Wait for your next cartoon.
They're called emojis.
I refuse to talk to Esther at this moment because then I'll be a mess for the rest of the day.
I
So
know.
not saying anything to Esther right now. Esther, mute yourself. Mute yourself. Nope. You have to mute yourself. And Gus, as always, thank you. Thank you for like mountains of knowledge. Because Gus is like the man. Gus knows everything.
Yes.
He's the man.
I thank you because I never forget with parents, we all get paid to be here and do the job. But the parents, they do it just out of caring about the children and about education and, you know, contribute their time. So to me, that's a very special thing. So you're all very special people to do that.
You are.
All I know is that finally I can stop taking time off for work to go to DLTs, go to SLT.
No, listen, that's not true. That's not true because you can still come. They are public meetings, right? And you are welcome anytime to come and
Not that, I'm
Where-
talking about, I've used my vacation days for the last 18 years to do everything PTA related or SLT or DLT. I don't have to do that anymore. I'm
But
looking at what am I
now
going to
you're
do
gonna
with
have
my
to go
time.
away.
Charlene, you're still gonna have to be around so that we could refer to you for the Roberts rules, you know. When we have a question, we need to like phone a friend. We have to phone Charlene for the Roberts rules.
Yep, this will
Yes,
be
phone
me.
Charlene.
This will be me. Esther, call Charlene.
You know I'm always available. You can call and text me at any time. It doesn't
Pull
matter
her
that
in.
I'm leaving.
Pull her into the meeting. Pull her in.
I'm leaving, but I'll still be here. How about that?
Yes, well,
But
thank
once again, thank you for the acknowledgement. Love you all.
of you.
All right, I gotta go cry now.
Yep, and now for our
Yay,
next,
Charlene.
our next slide. Here we go, Lewis. There we go, Christine. Christine, you have done so much for this district, and I know there was a transfer mid-year, and I did want to wait till the end of the year to give you an opportunity to graduate as your son has graduated. But when I think about the work that you've done as President's Council President and the work that you've done as a CEC member, you helped us to open College Point Collaborative. We would not have done that without you. You were the parent in there from the start. So actually, you graduate this year saying that you have opened a school in District 25. So, and that is just the tip of the iceberg of the work that you've done to support us. So I want to say thank you, congratulations, and hopefully you could come back as high school, but I don't know.
We'll see.
No, I know it's a tremendous amount of work, but I want to say thank you for all that you've done. You've really been, an amazing parent leader across the district. And once again, you're always part of this family. So I'm not even going to say goodbye. So thank you.
No, well, I'll probably still
Yay,
be
Christine.
around until Paul is out of office, so you'll see me for a couple more months. So
No. She's gonna join Queens High School President's Council.
no, I'm going to be in Manhattan. No, the problem is I'm going to be in Manhattan High School, Charlene.
What?
My son is going
Betrayal.
to school.
Yeah.
My son is
All right,
going to school
we'll
in
work
Manhattan.
it out. Listen, Charlene will find some Robert's rule for you to get back here. So we'll assign that. But once again, thank you, Christine, for all of your work.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Christine.
Okay, so moving on. So I wanted to just, I'm going to make this a very quick presentation before I turn everything over to Mike. But so as you all know that over the past 2 years, our district has formed an equity team. And we've spent a lot of time really discussing what our district values are around equity across our district. So we've studied disproportionality rates of special education referrals for our Ls. We've looked at suspension rates for our Black and Hispanic students across the district. And through that, we have engaged in different types of studies with our schools. We had 2 incubator schools that work directly with the Office of Equity and Access. We've done a variety of training around implicit bias for our teachers and principals and guidance counselors. You know that Dr. D'Antona and I have spoken about our most recent work, which is working with Dr. Maria Aquignelli around culturally responsive mindsets, as well as how to incorporate that into the learning and resources that our students encounter every day, so they see themselves in the lives of their work. So as part of our work as an equity team, we said if we really believe in equity across our schools, then we have to show that as a district. What are our values? What are our beliefs? And so most recently, we've spent time going back to our vision statement. So many of you who have been here across the years, you recognize our vision statement of strong roots, strong schools, and what that means. Dr. D'Antona and I have talked about where we were as a district when we first founded that vision of Strong Roots, Strong Schools. It was about building foundations of learning and what that means. We've had CEC members make additions to that vision as to what that should mean community-wise. And we have just spent some time with our equity team really grounding this work in what it means to be inclusive for all, but and maintain our values of high expectations, of rigorous learning, of opportunities for our students. So I want to show the DLT where we have arrived so you can give us feedback on this work. If the DLT is okay with this from their feedback, we will, and I will tell you the next steps that we're going to do with our mission. But this would be something that we would communicate to all of our schools, to our community, as our vision moving forward, and how we're going to continue to grow as a district. So, Louis, do you have it to put up? I want to thank Louis for the design of this because he just did a beautiful job. So he's going to, there's two different versions of it.
Mike, do you have the slide mic or no? I don't have it open.
Yes, I do.
So Dr. D'Antona will show it. So first show the wide version, which I love. This is my favorite, but we have two versions.
I don't have it on my computer. I have to go through my email and find it when I sent it to you. Hi. There it is.
Ooh.
There you go.
You see it?
We're just taking it in. Then
Okay.
Mike, we're just taking it in. Right, Danielle?
Yep. If anyone has, honestly, if anybody has feedback, they could put it in the chat. We could speak out loud, and we will bring that back to the equity team.
Yeah, just to give you a little context, this is what it was before. Growing together for our children's future, strong roots, strong schools, grow deep, stand tall, and then through the work of the district equity team and engaging in conversations, this is where it wound up evolving into. So
Looks amazing and true.
I like it. I see the growth from the previous one to this one. So I really like it. It represents growth. I like it.
You should patent this.
I should.
Well, the problem is, I think I took the tree from something. So if I go to patent it, I'll get it.
We're gonna get a lawsuit.
At one point, somebody's going to sue, and then we're going to need Charlene or you.
Oh yeah.
Even though neither of you practice that law, but.
it was a public image, though. I mean, it was accessibly publicly.
Yeah.
Just because it's accessible publicly does not mean it's okay.
All right. We don't want you.
Yeah,
We don't want you as a lawyer.
Thank you,
We don't want you
Charlie.
as a lawyer anymore.
Yeah, I think we've added to it so we could say that. But if you asked me, like, was the foundations of this song, was the beat of this song from something else, I might say yes.
Just so you know, one of the things that we're asking all of the groups to kind of think through is kind of noticings and wonderings, any questions that are being raised for them at, in terms of the vision, because it is part of modeling and experience for our building leaders, including our school leadership teams, around their visions. And, how do we get to the place that we are, and why is it that we're making some of the adjustments that we're making? So for us, I think that's what this allowed us to, and is allowing us to model for other schools at the same time.
Yeah, and as part of this model, it is not forgetting the true vision and values of what your vision represents, right? So Strong Roots, Strong Schools has been a constant since the beginning, right? But as we've evolved from the work that we've done together as a community, we see the need to be more inclusive of things happening across the district, right? And the, and just valuing and embracing the fact that District 25 is one of the most diverse districts in the city. And so, and what does that mean? And how does that drive our decision making around the work that we do in early childhood math, around the work that we've done around Regents Readiness coursework and where we go through that, right? Around our whole idea of empowering learners so, they have agency and they're excited about what's happening, right? Around them learning from each other and each other's differences in ways just beyond kind of like one-off experiences, right? Like, how do we embed that? The fact that when you are around a diverse community, it makes you a more well-rounded, educated individual, right? And what does that mean? And how do we capture that? So our next steps as an equity team, and something that we're going to be doing across the year next year with the DLT, is clearly defining what empowering learners, embracing differences, providing equitable access and opportunity for all means to us. So we're all speaking from the same ideas. It may look different in every school, but the whole concept of what these terms mean and how we will live them every day is part of the work that we're going to do. And so our next step is working through our mission statements to make sure that our beliefs are truly identified and clear within our mission statement, because the expectations of our schools is that they frame their vision and their expectations around the district vision and expectations. So I also know that something that Dr. D'Antona and I have done is that we've really been looking very closely at our school's vision and mission statements during our PPO visits. And if we see that it's time for a certain school to kind of check that work and go for like a real conversation and revamping, then that's some feedback that we've been giving to principals. But otherwise, our recommendation is to always make sure that you begin and end your school year with your mission and vision, right? To say, did we live this year? And if not, what are some of our next steps that we have to do? So, so if everybody is good with this, we're going to continue to work through this and move forward to introduce it to our school community. So I want to say thank you. And then as we start our work next year as a DLT and speaking with our SLTs, this might be some of the foundations of your conversation. So Dr. D'Antona and I are going to put something together, sort of like a packet for you to go through your first meeting with the SLTs, but this will be one of those pieces of the conversation. So any questions or comments?
Well, Danielle, I have a comment and it relates to my agenda items as well. I've been involved with some conversations with Central about equity and diversity. And we're going to be receiving both more information and more resources and initiatives, both from the city, I believe, and from the state, because the state is also keenly aware of this and it's a major agenda item for a state education department. Now, one thing that in terms of the school level CEPs, during the training, I advocated strongly that it be embedded in supportive environment, but in all the root cause analysis the schools do, and in really reflected in every action plan. So as you're reviewing CEPs and the DLT is looking at them, the planning process is going forward, principals and SLTs should make it easy to find. The equity, piece should not be something that you have to dig out. It should really be as prominent and easy to notice in a school plan as possible. That's one thing. The second thing is, in the conversation with Central, I made a suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, but it's based on a previous model that I was involved, and you'll remember it, in implementing citywide. You remember a number of years ago, we rolled out what were called inquiry teams in every school. And it wasn't enough to say that, okay, every school has an inquiry team and, somebody's in charge of it. What they did was they put together some resources and, to help those structures really get put into place at the school level. So what I suggested to Sharon Rencher, who was part of the conversation, I said, based on that model, maybe Central should consider a structure of having equity teams in every school, and really give them resources and a mechanism for working at the school level with the SLT and with all members of the school community to implement this kind of change and to make sure that it's followed and could be measured in some way. And Bob Klein, who's now retired, was part of the conversation, and he said that he had some information about equity teams from other districts somewhere in the city and was going to share them. So I think that going forward, that structure might be something to consider, and whether Central, implements it citywide or not, it's just something to, keep in mind in terms of your district initiative. The other thing is there's a term that stuck with me that Sharon Rencher used, which probably reflects terminology at Central and at state ed. She talked in terms of, bear with me if I don't get it right. She called it proportionality. Disproportionality. I see you nodding, so you probably heard that term as well. I'm not exactly sure how to spell it. I have a little difficulty saying it, but I understand the concept that it's not just equity, it's, gaps. And I think of that visual, then one of the trainings we had where a bunch of people are looking at a baseball game, and if you give everybody the same, block to stand on, it doesn't work because some people are taller, some people are shorter. Do you remember the one? I thought it was rather a good visual for explaining, how to address, equal access for people. So there's that term, whatever. That I think we're gonna,
you know what, Gus,
right.
we've
We're
done
gonna be
that
hearing
work.
more about that.
Yeah, we've done that work, which is why I know how to say it. But I was just like that when we first started engaging in it. I will say, so if you look in our DCEP, you will see some of that work reflected, and we are also very willing to share some of the work that we did with our equity teams, because we are one of those teams that worked with the Office of Equity and Access and going through that, which is why which kind of brought us to this whole idea from the learning that we have engaged in. I will also say that we are thinking about, and this is also some planning that Dr. D'Antona and I will be doing this summer, we are thinking about where within our current teams our equity work can and should live, right? Because what we don't want to do is to continue to make more and more teams, which become hard to manage. And then each school decides which team they will prioritize, right? So Dr. D'Antona and I are talking about perhaps embedding our the equity work within our CASE teams, right? Our cultural, attended, social, emotional learning teams. We're also thinking about, should we embed that work within our ILTs instead of, and then supporting the equity work no matter where it lives at the school level. So we're going to continue to engage in that discussion, and we will once again kind of focus it around where that can live within our schools. So, and we'll bring this back to the DLT as well. Okay. All right. So Dr. D'Antona, so you'll go over our next two pieces just so DLT can see. Once again, we're going to show you the draft goal review and get your feedback if you have any. They have not really changed since last month. However, based on the end of year ELA and math assessments and student outcomes, it may change for over the summer. So we may, like once again, Dr. D'Antona and I are going to continue to focus on this work so we can share this information with you. But we wanted to do draft goals review and feedback from you guys. And then remember when we said we're going to have assessments, our iReady and MAP assessments and STAR assessments 3 times in the year. This past May, we gave the final assessments. And so Dr. D'Antona is going to go through that with you as well. So take it away, Dr. D.
Sure. Okay, everyone. So as you know, our schools went through the process of administering baseline benchmark assessments throughout the year. Hold on one second. They've administered assessments throughout the year, and what I shared with you a couple of sessions ago was what that data looked like. So I've added additional columns in here just so that you can kind of see how did that change from baseline to the end of the year and the goal targets that we set as a district for ELA mathematics for a variety of subgroups, which I will show you right now. So in 18-19, the last time that we did have a state assessment, this was the performance level of our targeted subgroups that we had for this year. Students with disabilities, 21% of them were on or above grade level. 40% of our Black population was on or above grade level. 46% of our Hispanic population was on or above grade level. And 15% of our L student population was on or above grade level. We had set a benchmark target of overall that we wanted to improve by 5%. The benchmark target was 2.5% greater than that percentage. Then we got to, bless you, to our grade level, our winter grade level, our winter assessment, which we then shared what our percentages were at that time. If you guys recall, we did have gaps in terms of overall performance for each of our subgroups, with our Hispanic population having the largest gap amongst them. This column here is our spring column, our spring assessment, the latest one that was given and administered in May. You will notice that there was improvement from the winter assessment, but not nearly enough to get us to a place where we would have been meeting the expectations of our end year target, which is in this next column right here. So our end year target for our students with disabilities was 26% proficiency, 45% for our Black population, 51% for our Hispanic population, and 20% for our L population. The target subgroup that did come closest to attaining that level was our L population, just shy of 20% of kids performing at proficient levels. Our Hispanic population was a population that did wind up showing the least amount of growth this year comparatively to other subgroups, as well as our Black and students with disabilities. So for overall, we still did have a pretty good chunk of children that were performing in that average range, which means more students could have performed at proficient levels. Some students not so much. So they were kind of in that teetering range of moving towards meeting standards versus not necessarily getting to that level just yet. So there is potential for some of these students to have brought us up closer to the end year target, but we certainly have ways to go in relationship. And Danielle, I'm seeing you nodding your head that you had something to add. Did you want to say something there?
Yeah, so I want to be clear. As part of our conversation, one of the things that you'll always know about me is that I'm honest about a lot of things, because until you're honest, until you get on the scale, you can't set relevant goals for yourself. So the data that we show you in ELA and math is worse, you're not going to be happy with it, right? And so Dr. D'Antona and I are saying there's certain pieces of this work that we wanted to address. So for example, all of these kids took ELA and math state tests, or many of them, and then they also took an iReady test a couple of weeks later. So they could have been issues with just being tested a lot. Additionally, it's the end of the year. It was a very difficult year. We don't necessarily know if that impacted this data. So we want to talk about that in one sense. But then on the flip side, we want to say our expectations for schools is to use this data to unpack the needs of students in September, right? To say, let's get to know our students well, who is where really, using the same structures, and how are we going to use that to really drive MTSS, and we've gone over what that is, the multi-level supports for our kids that they need across the year. What does that look like right away? So Dr. D'Antona and I are going to be on our schools about that. We're going to be in schools right away looking at that work, because that's really what's important. The second piece that has come from the executive superintendent that we've already spoken to our principals about, that our principals are going to start making decisions and communicating with SLTs, is that we are requiring one assessment to be given across the year. So right now we have 26 schools that are using iReady, so we have a really good pool to kind of pull from, but we also have the other remaining schools that are using other ones, and right now they're using STAR, Lexia. Right now we're saying everybody's got to be using one tool, and we're going to use that to engage in our conversations to make sure right away that our students, that we understand where our students are and that they're getting the supports that they need. So we've spoken about across the year the need to focus on our Hispanic population. We see that that is really something that we still need to continue to do, especially in the area of literacy, right? So I just want to say that during these meetings, we want your honesty, we want your recommendation, as Charlene will say, like, we need to hear it so we can grow from it. So
yeah,
okay.
And you know, just to quickly point out, you know, the difference between the state exam and the assessments that our kids are taking with these benchmarks. State exam, as you know, is a 4-point scale, 1 through 4. The assessments that our kids are taking, with the exception to STAR, puts things in a 5-point scale, which is why I have this percent average column. You know, some of our students inside of this range would have the potential to be meeting standards. It's just they're not necessarily 100% there yet, so they did not put them in that what they call either high or high average, or on or above grade level yet, just based on their performance. So I just want to kind of make sure that you're aware of that these are on a 5-point scale, not on a 4-point scale, the way the state's assessment is, which is why I highlight this column, because there is obviously more room for our kids to grow, to hopefully meeting these targets that we've set. Needless to say, we still have lots of room to grow inside of this difference between end-year target and our current performance for children that are right now on or above grade level. So where does that bring us? That brings us to the current goal that we've written at this point, which we're certainly looking at you guys for feedback from, in terms of looking at what does this data say, and then what does our goal currently say. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a minute just to kind of look through what the current goal states, and anything that comes to your mind that you believe we should make some adjustments on, would be a great opportunity for us to hear from you now.
Can I say something?
Absolutely, Joe.
So, you know, so look, it's kind of disappointing to me, but I have to be honest, I kind of expected it, because I think because of this pandemic and, you know, like, the kids were not where they were pre-pandemic. So those that were home had their issues, those that were going to school had their issues. There's a lot of social issues, emotional issues. So I think, you know, that has to be taken into consideration. And, you know, it's upsetting, but, you know, I think we really need to bring the kids back emotionally, that they understand, what a rigorous education is, right? It's tough.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I think there are a lot of variables that are at play this year. Certainly different than what we've experienced before. So I agree with you. I think that there's an element of how did SEL impact, how did difference between learning in home versus in school. There are a lot of variables. And for us, obviously, as a DLT and for schools at the school leadership team level, is really looking at where we are and setting some really strong benchmarks for improvement as we go into 21, 22. So what does it say right now? I think perhaps baseline assessments in September might tell us a little bit of a different story, because hopefully, Joe, hopefully all kids are in school and we're learning that way, and we don't have any kind of stepping back between now and the start of the school year. Setting up the goal in and of itself, I think our schools did a really great job of organizing their data in a different way this year, and are in a good place with that organization to support children coming in September. But is there anyone else, and thank you for that, Joe, I appreciate that. Anyone else have any other comments about the goal, the organization of it?
I have a question. This is Francis. For the Hispanic population, because I always find a confusion, because I'm Hispanic and I speak English and Spanish, but mostly I speak English. So when you say Hispanic, are you talking about all Hispanics that speak English? Or are you talking about Hispanics that don't speak English? Because I see there's ELL is separated from that. So that's my first part of the question.
So ELS is a different subgroup. English language learners are children that are classified by the NICETEL to receive additional EL services. So those are children that are either at the entering, emerging, transitioning levels of the English language and have been identified as such. So you could be an English language learner and also be, be a Hispanic student. You can be an English language learner and be Chinese, and so on. So they're two very different subgroups, but could be, aligned in terms of ethnicity as well. So, that's the differentiation between English language learner and Hispanic. Now, Hispanic population is based on, the feedback that parents provide to the school in terms of ethnicity, and that it's entered into the school system, data system for it to be tracked in terms of New York State accountability.
Okay. Then my next question is, I noticed that, this is overall, it seems that a lot of pressure is put on the parents for these children to accompany them in their homework, but it's very hard for Hispanic population if their parents don't speak English, but the child does, they don't get that support. So you're kind of putting that child, if you're waiting for the parents to support that child, it may not happen. And I think that goes across the board, not just Hispanic, but any other child that the parent is working or whatever. I just feel like there has to be the teachers, I know they do a lot, but there has to be more weight in the school and not depend so much on the parents, because then you have that imbalance. If someone just has, no support at home, will they not ever learn? Is I think the imbalance that I've seen throughout the years. And I know that, some people are fortunate in the pandemic to have that support.
So, one of the things that is important to know in this goal is that it is really a school-based structure that includes professional learning and expectations that are built with and for teachers, right? So we don't expect parents to know the priority learning standards, right? Or instruction regarding academic language development. So I know that, and I hear what you're saying, and that's actually something and a goal that I've set at the district level for Jinmei and Esther. It's one of the reasons why we started our parent chats and asked our PCs and our principals to really start engaging in these parent chats. And across the year, we've seen a lot of principals change some of the structures in their school to have better supports for students and parents. So I'll give you one example. One was a parent chat that I sat on that the school's CEP goal was aligned to targeting students with IEPs. And so the principal had organized a parent chat only with families of students with IEPs and got some really strong feedback from them that she could use to allow parents to better support students at home. And that was, parents were saying, I know that you get a lot of parents that complain that there's not a lot of work happening, but when you flood, you know, the Google classrooms with so much work, my child gets overwhelmed. We can't help them with work. We wind up doing their work for them and the learning doesn't happen. So what that principal then did was she went back and worked with her teachers and said, let's talk about key assignments that will give us a picture of where a student is falling within the priority standards that we're focused on. And let's make sure that we communicate to children that these are the tasks that you absolutely have to complete and the others are more enrichment. So I think our schools, grounded in goals like this, they are incorporating the needs of parents to better be able to support them. And that includes families that speak languages other than English, and why Esther and Jinmei across this year have hosted meetings in both Spanish and Chinese to get the same kind of feedback from parents that we've translated and given to schools so they can make those decisions at the school level to better support those parents as well.
Yeah, and you know, just in terms of the connections of priority learning standards and academic language development, one of the did I lose you? Guys, do you still hear me?
We got you, Dr. Mike. We got you.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what happened there. Computer got a little weird. Is the you know, the academic language piece one of the, you know, I did not share that data clip in here again, but just know that the reason why the academic language development component is there is because of what the data said in the MAP and iReady assessments throughout the year, is that vocabulary development was an area that we needed to continue to grow in. So part of that work would also be connecting with our families around what are those supports and how can we support families. It's not necessarily just at the home level, but making that connection and that bridge between home and school. So that there's an awareness across the community. Any other comments about the goal before we move on to math? Or any feedback, adjustments that you feel like should be considered? Okay. So guys, if there's anything, please feel free, add it in the chat. You're welcome to shoot me an email also, and you know, because these will be likely revised between now and the start of the school year as things come up, and you know, and other feedback comes from our other constituents. So please feel free to share a little bit of that moving forward. Now, math was a little bit of a different story, and you know, we did not see positive trends in mathematics when it came to the end year assessment. So our goal targets for mathematics, we wanted to end the year with 67% of our children being at proficient levels, 38% of our Black population, 45% of our Hispanic population, 35% of our students with disabilities, and 46% of our L population. What we found was, and you know, there are a number of variables that are at play here, but we did not come close to those benchmark targets that we set at the beginning of the year for math. We did have a significant number of children in that average range, but in terms of anticipating children being at this level from winter to spring, we actually saw a regression from where they were from where students were to where they wound up ending up. So when we look at percent on grade level in winter, we were at 48.7%. In spring, we were at 43.96% for our all students population. For our Black population, 26.6%, down to 20% of our students currently on grade level when we're looking at the spring. And so on. You can look at the data for the rest of the way down, but you can see that the trajectory that we saw in ELA was one of a positive and improvement. At the very least, it was a small improvement, but there was improvement. In math, we saw the opposite happen. We saw a bit of a decline in terms of overall performance when it comes to the end year benchmark. So obviously, lots more work to do here. Danielle and I did take a look at this, and we're in the process of kind of sifting through what some of the causal agents could have been for us to not necessarily see the progress that we anticipated in math towards the end of the year, and notwithstanding all of the variables that were already shared. Multiple assessments at the end of the year. Some of our kids not only had to do that, not only had to take the end year iReady or MAP, they took the state assessment, they took the NISA-SLAT. Some of them are now taking the science. So there are a number of variables that could have played a role in student performance here. But regardless, I always say this is our current reality. This is where we ended the year. Regardless of the variables, this is where we ended the year, and that was not meeting the expectations of the targets that we set as a district. So lots more work to do there. It brings us to a place of, and just to point out, you'll see that our Hispanic population did also struggle here, but we also need to make sure that we're identifying our L population as well, amongst the others also. So this goal very well may need to shift in terms of language. So we'll look at it now. If you can take just a minute, look at the current state of what this goal is and anything that you feel we should make adjustments to, given the data that I just shared with you. So just take 1 minute.
Another question, Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
I'm always impressed at your figures and how you do it. It's a lot of work. I'm sure about that. But yeah. I just wonder, even if you even looked at it, how do we compare to the rest of the city? Like, do you have those numbers or not yet?
So I will be meeting.
I can answer that. So the reason that we don't is because, remember we said in the beginning of the year that not every school did what we did and was tracking data using these benchmarks and these assessments. So we can't necessarily do that. What we can try to do, which is also very difficult, is like we could try to look at some state testing data just as like a comparative piece, but I don't even know if we would be able to measure that. And that could be a problem. But if we can look at it, we will try. But the answer to what you're saying is no, because we don't have another district to compare the same data to. Right, Mike?
Yeah, there's not an apples to apples comparison that we can make. I do know that there are schools around the city that have obviously used iReady and MAP. So we might be able to get a little bit of an understanding just based on data that is shared with us from iReady themselves, but they can't really share widely what it is that they're doing because it belongs to another district in the city. But anything that I can find on that, I'll be happy to share. If I have access to it.
No, I mean, I know we're on top of our game. I'm not questioning that, but with the numbers. I'm just assuming that the rest of the city scored much lower, because if we do what we do, and we're one of the districts that does a lot, I just wonder how the rest of the city's doing.
Yeah, no, it's a valid question, Joe. Because it's not like because it wasn't a I don't want to say mandate, but because not all schools were you had to use this assessment, there was variation, and when you have variation, I don't know that there was a system kind of the way that we created to gather all of that information across our schools, to kind of really get a finger on the pulse of how each of the schools across the city progressed. We are able to do that because we've organized in that way. But I'm not sure, I don't have necessarily a mechanism right now to see what that looks like across all of the schools. But like I said, if it becomes accessible, I will definitely share it.
So Michael, this is Francis. So the city doesn't have that data of their own?
So the city has one assessment that they have offered, and that's the MAP assessment.
Right, but the city doesn't have citywide data to do that.
Right.
No. That wasn't required this year, which is why a lot of executive superintendents are doing what Mabel is doing, which is asking each district to have a district-wide assessment so they can start tracking that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but any other comments just in terms of the construction of the goal, or any other database questions?
I have a I don't know if this is a suggestion or a comment. I don't know if we do it. Is this in line, because being that with the pandemic led to a lot of mental health issues and questions, is there a way, and I don't know if they do this now, that each student has like their own portfolio as far as their own work, so that, for example, a child that is doing 90s as an honor student, all of a sudden now is failing. And then will that be noticeable to the teacher, so that the teacher will step in to kind of see, is it something that's happening at home, or is it just, because obviously something's wrong, right? If a student is doing so well and all of a sudden not doing so well, or is the school interferes first, or does the parent have to notice it and then contact the school?
So, as you know, a part of our prior meetings, we talked about MTSS, right? So MTSS is supports that schools give to students that don't just land on academics, right? So across the year, a lot of work that we've done in terms of DLT has been talking about our case teams, and our case teams are our cultural attendance, social emotional learning teams. Every school has one. And that is where there is that communication and supports for teachers. And we've actually had principals come to us about your exact question and concern around bringing kids back to school 100% of the time if they were fully remote. So yes, that is happening across our schools as well.
Yeah, and all of our schools are administering social emotional learning surveys as well. So, coupled with attendance, coupled with academic performance, and student perceptions on how they're currently doing inside of the core SEL competencies, they use that in order to support families and students as the year goes on. And now, obviously, as the year is coming to a close. So there are other variables that schools take into account when providing supports to kids.
So what would that support look like if the child comes and it's doing 90s and now 60s? Does that support come to the child first from the school, or is the parent contacted?
All right, so Frances, for sake of time, because our meeting is supposed to end at 11 and we have a couple of things to do, because we've kind of talked about this across the year. So those supports are really, MTSS is school specific, right? So as a district, we support our schools in understanding MTSS, whatever needs a student may have. So for example, if it's academic, it's small group. If it's social emotional, what the case teams are doing with that. So I would say to anyone that would ask that question is really going down to having a conversation at the school level to say, like, what does your MTSS supports look like? Because every school is different, right? So we gave an example a couple of months ago. 163 has this thing called ear time, and ear time is like an advisory, and that's where the social emotional supports come in. And if somebody needs additional support, that is really what plans are made through the case team and working with the counseling team. So each school has different ways that they deliver MTSS. At the district level, our expectation is that schools clearly understand what MTSS is, so they're able to provide it. And then when we go in, we can recognize it. Does that make sense?
It's not answering my question, but I guess I will talk offline.
Okay. All right, Mike, can we go on, because Gus still has to present, and so does
Yeah, all right, so I will make this one quick. The chronic absenteeism, we have seen, and what we've actually just asked our schools to do, just did a recent run of our chronic absenteeism from May to June. You know, I do this monthly. And we have seen a little bit of a dip in terms of student attendance. So we do want to make sure that all of our schools are consistently touching base, especially towards the end of the year. You know, the last couple of weeks of school, even though it's the last couple of weeks of school, and some of our families might get a little bit looser on you know, getting their kids into school, could be. You know, we do tend to see attendance rates fluctuate a little bit towards the last couple of weeks of the school year. But needless to say, that does impact chronic absenteeism rates. So we did reach out to our buildings just to make sure that they're on top of that. We did see a little bit of a decline here. We had a number of subgroups that, when we look at the New York State MIP, the measure of interim progress, we have seen some schools slip a little bit. So we did give a reminder to make sure that attendance is consistently reviewed over the last 2 weeks, so that we avoid any further decline when it comes to chronic absenteeism rates for our subgroups. We do want to maintain that 75% of the targeted subgroups that we're currently level 1. As you know, ESSA is not holding schools accountable, but they will be moving forward. So it's really important that this is part of our mindset and approach for our schools when it comes to chronic absenteeism rates. And that was the last one, Danielle, for review.
Yep. Okay. So so the important thing is we will be revisiting these again as Dr. Mike and I start to kind of unpack this. You know, taking into account what you know, what Francis spoke about, I think it's really important, you know, just in terms of our parent engagement work, to start thinking about like how we will communicate to parents the best ways they can support students to address some of the learning gaps that we may see, that we know that we're going to encounter come September, how we can close them quickly and move forward to make sure that all students are on grade level. So that will be our focus area and something that we may have to change this goal. But remember, these goals are preliminary, but we wanted to make sure that there was that clear understanding and feedback around what that will look like. So it could include both academic and social emotional supports and what that looks like through MTSS, and just really clearly communicating that to schools. So any questions about this work before we move on? It's true.
Bless you.
Okay. Okay, so next up is Gus, and I know you'll run through this really quickly, Gus, correct? If he's still here, is he here?
Yes, I'll go through quickly. I turn off the camera to save bandwidth, so hopefully I don't get knocked off. The goals are excellent. What the task is that we have to do over the summer is take the goals and the data that you have, what Central is calling local assessments, and translate them into the DCP template, which is offline, because they don't match up exactly. So, you know, we have to finesse them a bit and take the introductory materials from the past and pour it into the template. And that's going to be our summer work. So we have a draft to share with the DLT, in September. And during, the meetings, summer meetings, we will share our progress. Again, you're unique in terms of the 100.11 by review that you did. So you have that additional data and information to put into the document as well, which is excellent and should be reflected in that. So it's an offline document this year. It's a full document. It's longer than it has been in the past. Bill Doyle will speak to the high school portions of it. But that's our task going forward, taking the information and the excellent goals that you have and adding and finessing them into the template. Next piece is DocuSign. As I mentioned, I believe during the meeting, I noticed that Lamar assigned it. So thank you, Lamar. And that leaves only Taylor O'Brien. If we can get to her, that'll be fine. But, we're almost 100%. So we've done an excellent job again with DocuSign, which is not the easiest thing to work with from my perspective. I get questions every day about our current CEPs and DCEP, the ones from this academic year that have been posted. They've been posted in two places, ladies and gentlemen. The 6 school CEPs are posted on each school's website. So you can get them from the school's website, or you go to iPlan, but you have to go to the public part of iPlan. In other words, you go to iPlanportal.com, do not log in. If your computer automatically logs you in, log out, and then go to the bottom of the page. The very bottom of the page, you'll see both for the DCP and the CEPs, you'll see a drop down. You can select your school or any school you want, and that's where the current CEPs that have been posted reside. The CEP updates. Louis, do you want to get the timeline up, or should I try sharing my screen?
I have it.
Okay, throw it up.
It's one page, right? One slide?
Yes, one page.
Give me one.
There are 2 documents, the timeline and the checklist, that I'm going to speak quickly to it. I just want, you have it. The new timeline replaces the old one. Just in the interest of time, let me keep talking. What they've done is the deadline for our preliminary CEPs, draft CEPs, full CEPs and iPlan for the schools has not changed. That's still the 15th. And I've had some conversation, just anticipating, Mary, with CSA representatives in some of the other districts. A lot of principals are stressed over having the draft in. It's a state regulation that we end every school year with a draft CEP for every school in the system going forward. That's the reason for it. I understand it's a burden. Schools need to fill in as much as they can, and they can add to it beyond the deadline this week of the 5th. Tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 15th, isn't it? Yeah. And I gotten emails from principals after this meeting I'll have to deal with. I'm available 24/7 to help schools as I have been, and like I said, I will address whatever emails I have, or calls or messages or whatever from schools on the CP issue. The timeline indicates that you see in red, it says Central releases preliminary school budgets, and then it says by July 16th, principals complete the attestation. So what they did was they moved the deadline for schools for the principal's attestation of the alignment between the budget and the goals to July instead of June 30th. So that's because of the delay in the budget coming out. So like I've said, District 25 has always been number 1, 2, or 3 in the entire city in getting all of these things done. So I'm optimistic that we will maintain our stellar record, and the schools will push the button before July 16th or by July 16th, because Central DOE will start issuing these lists, and I don't want any of our schools on those lists. So it's been extended to July 16th. So by July 30th, that has not changed. All of my superintendents will certify the alignment. They will push that button between goals and budgets. And I'm optimistic again that my superintendents will do that by the deadline date, as they always have in the past, and be among the first in the city to take care of that. Then July and August will be giving feedback on the plans for the schools, which will take us into the new academic year. One of the issues that comes up a lot in my interaction with schools is the supportive environment section and the issue of the school survey. They do not have school survey data. I'm told that the school survey results will become available in September. They can go to the school quality or look at their survey goal from last time and use whatever they can in terms of making up the goal. There's an issue involved with selecting domains. There's a drop down that's new in the CEP. So principals have to select a domain that they're addressing. And my recommendation is that they might want to select more than one domain and do like a goal based on the survey, and then maybe add an equity goal or a goal having to do with behavior or a supportive environment, social emotional, or whatever, whatever fits. But that's a school issue and a district issue. When goals are concerned, I tell every principal that they have to always be in line with their superintendent and their district office, and make sure that they're addressing any protocols and district priorities that come into play for that. Now, Louis, if you can pop up the checklist.
Yep.
This came up just the other day, so it's new. There's a state one, which I don't think I sent you. I sent you the city one. The state one is primarily being used for schools that are in improvement status, but the superintendents have both. So this is what the district offices and BCOs and others and whatever spot checking they do for schools in good standing on the state level. They have their own checklist, just I mentioned, to check and see what the city and the state are looking for in terms of each piece of the CEP. So this should be shared with all of our schools because it gives them a heads up that when they're putting their plans into place, the kinds of things that they will be evaluated on, and that the powers that be will be looking for. You could scroll all the way down, Louis, and just show them the rest of it. So it's all the different AOCs. See, that's MTSS, family and parent engagement. Remember, there's a parent section that they brought back underneath every action plan. And as I mentioned earlier, equity and diversity need to be embedded everywhere, in especially root causes and in the supportive environment section. Any questions on DLT, CEPs, and DCEPs, folks? And I'll move on to my last item if there are no questions. Okay, Title I, as I've said many times, I'm very proud of you. You met all of the mandates in terms of PACs, in terms of viewing the webinar, in terms of holding your meetings. You'd be surprised that there are still districts that still have some of those pieces outstanding, but no one in Queens North has any piece outstanding. The reason why I put it on the agenda is Central is working on something that parents will be very happy to hear about, I believe, and that I've been advocating for many years. I'm on a subcommittee for this, so I'm hoping that it'll happen. For a long time, I've asked, many years ago, FACE and DOE Central used to put out a guide, a booklet of vendors that were reviewed by DOE for parent engagement activities at the school level. In other words, workshops, curricula, and it was used for the 1% set aside, but sort of generally as well. So one of the issues that parents often have is, okay, I want to do homework help, I want to do A, B, and C. Well, who could I get to do this? I always mention the Hall of Science in terms of science education. They have this program that they do with parents and students together that was successfully used in the past. So to make a long story short, I'm on a subcommittee. They're pulling the vendor experiences and information citywide. My hope is that there'll be some kind of online booklet for parents come next academic year. I don't know what the timeline will be. So parents will have a resource that will be part of that. So going forward, when they're looking for a approved vendor that has been shown to do effective work in the schools to promote parent engagement and instructional support in a variety of ways, we'll have a list of these people and some information about each one. So I think that's it. That's my presentation, folks. Let me know if you have any questions or any follow-up.
Okay, any questions for Gus? All right, so Bill, you have the high school report?
I do.
Perfect.
So I'm going to make this brief. As Gus was saying, the school survey was completed on the 11th. Another due date on the 11th was the teacher and principal evaluation guidance. So that was supposed to be completed by the 11th as well. As we know, the Regents exams are continuing, but in a truncated fashion. We have the Regents from June 17th to the 25th. The exams that will be offered is Living Environment, Earth Science, Algebra 1, and English, and it will take place in the school building. Regarding NX and Regents waivers, principals are currently in the throes of reconciling as many NX grades as possible. Certain students are eligible for Regents exam waivers, which count as a passing score for that exam for graduation. Waivers are available for all Regents exam subjects, including the 4 exams being administered in person. Graduation ceremonies are to be held, schools will host them outdoors. There's also drive-in and drive-through or virtual graduations. Schools are strongly encouraged to hold in-person graduation in outdoor settings and at multiple times. In cases where schools do not have the option for an outdoor graduation, they may request approval from their superintendent to hold an indoor graduation. Schools that are planning to hold in-person graduation should also offer a virtual option for families and students. Regarding proms, in-person proms, both indoor and outdoor, are not permitted at this time. Student access to unofficial transcripts will be available in Teach Hub. So our 11th and 12th grade students will be able to access their unofficial transcripts in Teach Hub by clicking on the student document section. There's a little icon there for them to click on. Unofficial transcripts will be available through August. The superintendent's team has worked diligently to create the conditions for showcase classrooms. So members of the district team conducted classroom visits, identified 18 classrooms across disciplines as showcase classrooms. Practices to support student engagement included technology tools. Formative assessments were also identified. Assistant principal critical friends groups. So the superintendent's teams have worked directly with the assistant principals in the following areas. So social studies, English, mathematics, and science. And we had celebrations and end of year presentations that really reviewed their problem of practice and their action planning moving forward, that there's a continuity from this year into next year. Superintendent Lindsay also, in conjunction with Deputy Sue Gibson and Sharif Rucker, who is our Director of Climate and Culture, organized and implemented a Red Table Talk, which is a forum that we use to interview students and to hear their voices. Students had opportunities to speak about their resilience during the pandemic, the challenges that they had, and growth areas. Students were excited to participate and offered several positive solutions for next year. As we know, MBK and MSK, they had a town hall entitled I Am, We Are, and this was a student-led town hall that showcased students leading breakout sessions, such as a session on identity. We want to really talk about the accomplishments of the high schools in District 25. And this is just a small breakdown of the high schools and each of their major accomplishments. Veritas Academy, they assembled an assessment team of teachers that will evolve into an ILT inquiry team. The group developed uniform assessments and field tested to identify areas for revision. World Journalism Prep identified cyclical and tiered structure, formative assessments, teacher teams, student action planning, and individual pairing of students for identifying and supporting students who struggled academically and social emotionally during COVID-19. John Bound High School has an emphasis on social emotional learning and conducted data-informed learning experiences, such as daily check-ins during class, which we know is also part of the MTSS structure. Sessions included topics such as coping, front lines of COVID, level up, peers as partners, and bilingual mindfulness sessions for students and parents, and comfort counseling. Flushing High School has made great strides, and they're using virtual engagement strategies that were positioned by the borough instructional leads, including Jamboard, Nearpod, and Mood Meters. And these tools help to provide a planning structure for teachers and a participation platform for students, including robust SEL supports from CBOs. Townsend Harris, collaboration between teachers and the PTA that resulted in a shared vision for remote instruction that guided teaching and learning over the year. And Robert F. Kennedy Community High School, the number of students that are receiving the Seal of Biliteracy endorsed diploma has increased from 13 in 2019 to 35, with 85% of students learning remotely. And that concludes the high school report.
Bill just mentioned Flushing and our follow-up.
Oh, so Flushing as a TSI school receives additional supports throughout the year to develop their CEP. So we're going to have our last TSI visit with them. What's the date on that again, Gus?
It's towards the end of the month. What is it, 23rd, 24th, something like that? Yeah.
Today. I think it's the 21st, which is a Monday.
Okay, so Bill, also, based on the conversations that you just had in terms of analysis of the work, I know that you and Gus can work together for some time during the summer to incorporate the high school goals so we can present them as well to the DLT. I know that there's kind of shift in your data. It comes out at different times of the year.
Yeah.
But if you can also speak to Elaine, to see if we can incorporate some of the targets that you're thinking about, and if that's going to be your goals for the year.
Absolutely. Just so that you know, I am working with Dr. Quaid on that, and we are going through each section. As you said, absolutely, we don't have all the data at our fingertips because it does come in at different times, but we're working on that now. And I'm hoping to have something to present for July.
Okay. All right. Thank
Bill,
you.
call me
You're
after
welcome.
this meeting, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so new business. Does anyone have new business? I know that this was a very long meeting. And so I won't call on each individual group, but as you see, Lewis put some information in the chat. If you have not signed in, please sign in. He also included the extension of the school survey to this Friday. But if there's any other constituencies that have new business, please present it now. UFT, CSA, President's Council, DC 37. Yes, if you want to, Joe.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to say something on behalf of CEC. So we've had, an issue in the district regarding school expansion and new schools. And SCA had presented at the last CEC meeting a proposal to build a school in our community, which seems to have gotten some pushback by the members in the immediate community where the school is intended to be built in Bay Terrace. And there is a community board meeting this Wednesday for Community Board 7. And I would ask, because I will be there to support schools, as I always do, that if anyone is interested to come on and speak on behalf of the schools, because we do need more schools. The community seems to think that they're planning to put an elementary school at this location, and the community seems to think that these elementary students are a hazard to the community. So I think we need to set the record straight, and if we can get as much support as we can at Community Board 7, I think it would speak volumes, because I know that the people that are challenging it will certainly be there and speak against it.
Joe, maybe you can email the link to the superintendent and then she could send it to.
So yes, so I'm not good with
I
all that
have it.
stuff. Christine, maybe you can help me.
I have it.
Lewis can put it in the chat.
Lewis.
Thank you, Lewis. I appreciate it. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to that.
And listen, Community Board 7, I found the link on Facebook. It was like random on Facebook. It's not even on their website. So I don't even know what they're doing.
So
Yeah.
So one of the things that Joe and I had conversations with both SEA and space planning, and as you know, space planning and SEA present at our CEC meetings every year, and what they talk about is seats that are needed in the school district based on historical and future projection data. So the area that they're talking about in terms of Community Board 7 includes the area that they want to build, Bayside, Whitestone, and College Point. And so what they are saying, in that sub-district, there is a need for over 2,500 seats. And they only have 1,000 seats in process. So they're looking for spaces to continue to build seats. Now, we also know that there's community concern anytime there's going to be building that's happening in the community. But what Joe is supporting, and the district supports it too, is that for many years, for those of you who are parent leaders and other constituents in the district, we do know that we have been an overcrowded district. So anytime there is an opportunity for more seats, of course, District 25 and the DOE will support that. But I think one of the things that we're basically saying is, although there's, and I will say this, because I have done a lot of work with SEA, and that we've had a lot of extensions because of our overcrowding across the years. They really do hear our concerns and fix them, right? Like, we've had meetings. I know Joe has come with any issues. They are happy to meet with local electeds. They are happy to hear community concerns, and they really do make adjustments to their plans and programs to make sure that they're also working with the community, because they want an opening of a school to be successful. So they're saying, and we support the need to let the community board know that although there may be concerns that SEA is willing to address, that overall the community does recognize the need for schools and are supporting the building of new schools. So, so thank you, Joe, for bringing that up today. Charlene, you have a question, or are you saying goodbye?
No, I'm not saying goodbye. From President's Council, our updates. We're going to vote on a resolution tonight, asking that DOE lift the well, actually postpone the borough geographic what do you call those things? Restrictions
Zoning.
that they're supposed to lift. Thank you. We want them on hold until they can build us more schools in more high schools in Queens. Right now, there's not enough seats for our current students. And now when they lift this, anyone that's in Manhattan, that's like a 15-minute train ride to a school in Long Island City, can take seats away from our children that are right here. And our students, even those within the borough, already travel an hour within the borough. Now they will have to go out of borough more if these seats, once this thing is lifted. Sorry, I'm doing two things at once, so I'm like, ooh. But also, like, for example, my child, it takes an hour and a half for him to get to school. And I'm in the borough. And that's our biggest concern. We have a special meeting on the 22nd with Deputy Chancellor, I forgot his name.
Josh Wallach? I
think so.
Yeah.
Him and two other DCs, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. We have a special meeting on the 22nd to discuss this. We're very concerned because not only does it affect our current high school students, it affects our graduating 8th graders. Mm-hmm. Like, where are they going to go to school at? There are no seats here, and I'm disgusted at the people in Bates Terrace. They don't want a school built.
They're foxes.
Like another shopping mall. I mean, what a bunch of idiots. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say that. You know me, I always say what's on my mind, but
Charlene, you gotta come to the meeting.
You're welcome to come, Charlene.
I think you should come to the community board meeting, Charlene.
When is that? Send me the money.
Wednesday night.
It's Wednesday night.
At 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see it there. Okay, I gotta add that to my calendar. What bunch of idiots! But anyway, that's what we're doing. We're also having elections tonight, and we're finally changing our bylaws. Yeah, we haven't done that since 2014. Anyway, good. It happens, but basically that's it for us.
Perfect. Thank you, Charlene. Any other new business? Okay, so once again, I want to say thank you to all of our outgoing members, and thank you all for the work that we have done this year and will continue to do. I appreciate everything that we do in service of our students and our schools and our communities. In the worst of times, through the worst pandemic, I think, and I truly believe that we have continued to set high standards for our district as a team. And I want to thank all of you for that in this, because it also added, although we have time to meet virtually, it also added a lot more work to our plates, and you guys really took the time to continue to do that. So I want to say thank you, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And Charlene and Christine, please know that we look forward to you popping into our meetings when you can. And once again, thank you for your service to the children in District 25 and beyond in the city. So also, as you know, we've had elections for our new CECs and our citywide councils. So our first meeting is July 2nd.
No.
Yes, July 2nd, July 7th.
July 7th, thank you. Where we are going to welcome our new CECs. Joby Di Benedetto, congratulations, you will be returning. And I know Rashmi Krishnaroff is here, was here earlier. Congratulations to her as well. Once again, Christine, outgoing graduating member of CEC, thank you for your support and service across the years, and we appreciate you. Okay, anyone else? So can we have consensus to end this meeting? I don't know what to say if somebody says no. But
no.
Everybody, is there anybody who objects to ending the meeting?
Absolutely not.
All right, once again, thank you guys and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Good luck,
Nice seeing
Charlene.
everyone.
See you. I'll talk to you later.